It was a crime that shocked the world. A story so disturbing that it changed the way we view childhood forever. Two 10-year-old boys, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, did the unthinkable. They lured an innocent 2-year-old, James Bulger, away from his mother in broad daylight and led him to a fate too horrifying to imagine. This wasn't the act of seasoned criminals, but children who seemed to have crossed a line that no one saw coming. How could something like this happen? What drove these two young boys to commit such a heinous act? And how did this tragic event alter the course of British legal history? In today's episode of True Crime Series, we'll unravel the chilling details of the murder of James Bulger, a case that not only stunned a nation but forced it to confront the dark realities of childhood, justice, and redemption. Stay with us as we explore the events that led to one of the most heart-wrenching and unforgettable crimes in history. This is a story you won't be able to turn away from, and one that will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. But before we dive on, please kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel to support us and turn on your notification so that whenever we post our true crime series, you can get notified. Jon Venables was born on August 13th, 1982, in Liverpool. He was the third of 4 children in a family marked by instability and emotional turmoil. Jon's parents, Susan and Neil Venables, had a troubled relationship that eventually ended in separation. This instability had a profound effect on Jon, who exhibited signs of emotional distress from a young age. Jon struggled with behavioral issues at school, often acting out aggressively and showing signs of severe emotional disturbance. Teachers noted that he had difficulty making friends and often lashed out at others. His family life was equally chaotic, with his parents frequently arguing and his mother struggling to manage Jon's increasingly disruptive behavior. Robert Thompson, born on August 23, 1982, had an even more troubled upbringing. He was the 5th of 7 children in a family plagued by violence, neglect, and poverty. Robert's father abandoned the family when he was just 5 years old, leaving his mother, Anne, to raise the children alone. The Thompson household was a chaotic environment, with frequent episodes of domestic violence and severe financial hardship. Robert developed a tough exterior, often bullying other children and manipulating those around him. He showed little empathy and was known for his cold, detached demeanor. Teachers and social workers noted his troubling behavior, but there was little intervention to address the underlying issues. During the late 20th century, Liverpool faced significant economic challenges. The decline of traditional industries led to widespread unemployment and poverty, creating an environment of deprivation and social dislocation. This harsh socio-economic landscape had a profound impact on the lives of many children growing up in the city, including Jon Venables and Robert Thompson. The lack of social support and opportunities contributed to their feelings of anger, frustration, and alienation. In contrast to Jon and Robert's troubled backgrounds, James Bulger was born into a loving and stable family on March 16, 1990. His parents, Denise and Ralph Bulger, adored their son and provided a nurturing environment. James was a bright, happy child who loved playing with his toys and spending time with his family. His innocence and joy would soon be cruelly taken away by the unthinkable actions of 2 other children. February 12, 1993, began as a typical day in Bootle, Liverpool. Jon Venables and Robert Thompson, both just 10 years old, were skipping school and wandering the New Strand shopping center. The boys spent the day engaging in petty theft and causing minor disturbances. But as the day wore on, their actions would take a dark and sinister turn. At around 3:40 p.m., the boys spotted 2-year-old James Bulger outside a butcher's shop, where his mother had briefly turned her attention away. Seizing the opportunity, Jon and Robert approached James, taking him by the hand and leading him out of the shopping center. The chilling moment was captured on CCTV, marking the beginning of a harrowing ordeal. Over the next 2.5 hours, Jon Venables and Robert Thompson led James on a terrifying journey through the streets of Liverpool. The boys took James on a circuitous route, covering a distance of over 2 miles. Along the way, several people noticed the trio, but no one intervened, assuming that the older boys were James's brothers or caretakers. The boys took James to various locations, including a canal, where they inflicted minor injuries on him, and a local cemetery. Despite the pain and fear James must have felt, the boys continued to lead him further away from safety. Their final destination was a disused railway line in Walton. Venables and Thompson's actions turned shockingly violent. The boys brutally attacked James, inflicting a series of horrific injuries. The violence was senseless and savage, with the boys using stones, bricks, and a 22-pound iron bar to inflict fatal injuries on the toddler. After the attack, they laid James's body across the railway tracks in an attempt to disguise the murder as an accident. James's body was discovered 2 days later, and the horror of what had occurred began to unfold. The discovery shocked the nation and led to an outpouring of grief and anger. The brutality of the crime, coupled with the age of the perpetrators, made it one of the most disturbing and incomprehensible cases in modern history. When James Bulger went missing, his mother, Denise, immediately alerted the authorities. A massive search effort was launched, with police and volunteers scouring the area for any sign of the missing toddler. The search was widely covered by the media, and the community rallied together in the hopes of finding James safe and sound. However, as the hours passed, hopes began to fade. The discovery of James's body on the railway line was a devastating blow to the Bulger family and the entire community. The focus quickly shifted from a search operation to a murder investigation. James's body was found on February 14, 1993, on a disused railway line in Walton. The nature of his injuries left no doubt that this was a case of foul play. Forensic evidence, including blood stains and injuries, provided crucial information about the attack. The discovery was met with shock and disbelief, and the police were under immense pressure to find those responsible. The breakthrough in the case came when police analyzed CCTV footage from the New Strand shopping center. The grainy footage showed 2 young boys leading James away. The police released the images to the public, hoping someone would recognize the boys. Within days, the police received a tip-off that led them to Jon Venables and Robert Thompson. Both boys were arrested on February 20, 1993, and brought in for questioning. The nation was stunned to learn that 2 10-year-old boys were the prime suspects in such a heinous crime. During their police interviews, both Venables and Thompson initially denied any involvement in James's disappearance. However, under intense questioning, their stories began to unravel. Venables was the first to break down, eventually confessing to the crime. Thompson soon followed, admitting his role in the abduction turning point in the investigation, confirming the police's worst fears. The details of the crime, as recounted by the boys, were chilling and difficult to comprehend. The case was now set to go to trial, and the public's attention turned to the courtroom, where justice for James Bulger would be sought. The trial of Jon Venables and Robert Thompson began on November 1, 1993, at Preston Crown Court. Due to the boys' age, the trial was highly unusual and unprecedented in British legal history. The case attracted massive media attention, with the public demanding justice for James Bulger. The boys were charged with the abduction and murder of James Bulger, as well as attempted abduction of another child on the same day. The trial was a harrowing experience for all involved, particularly the Bulger family, who had to endure hearing the gruesome details of their son's final moments. The prosecution's case was built on a combination of forensic evidence, CCTV footage, and the boys' own confessions. They argued that Venables and Thompson had planned the abduction and carried out the murder with full knowledge of what they were doing. The evidence presented was overwhelming, leaving little doubt about their guilt. Key witnesses, including forensic experts and police officers, testified about the nature of James's injuries and the evidence linking the boys to the crime. The prosecution's case painted a grim picture of premeditated violence carried out by 2 young boys who fully understood the consequences of their actions. The defense's strategy focused on the boys' age, mental state, and background. They argued that Venables and Thompson were too young to fully comprehend the gravity of their actions. The defense called upon psychological experts who testified about the boys' troubled upbringing and emotional immaturity. The defense sought to portray the boys as products of their environment, arguing that they were deeply disturbed children who needed help rather than punishment. However, this argument did little to sway public opinion, which was overwhelmingly in favor of a harsh sentence. On November 24, 1993, the jury found Jon Venables and Robert Thompson guilty of the abduction and murder of James Bulger. The judge sentenced both boys to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, the equivalent of a life sentence for juveniles. The minimum tariff was set at 8 years, although this would later be increased due to public outcry. The verdict and sentencing were met with mixed reactions. While many were satisfied that justice had been served, others felt that the sentence was too lenient given the severity of the crime. The case continued to spark debate about juvenile justice, the age of criminal responsibility, and the appropriate punishment for young offenders. The trial of Venables and Thompson reignited a national conversation about juvenile justice. The case highlighted the complexities of dealing with child offenders and the challenges of balancing punishment with rehabilitation. Many questioned whether children as young as 10 should be held fully accountable for their actions, while others argued that the severity of the crime warranted the harshest possible response. The debate over the age of criminal responsibility, which was 10 years old in England at the time, became a focal point of discussion. Some called for the age to be raised, arguing that children cannot fully understand the consequences of their actions. The murder of James Bulger had a devastating impact on his family. Denise and Ralph Bulger were left to grapple with the unimaginable grief of losing their son in such a brutal manner. Over the years, the family has been vocal about their struggles, with Denise in particular becoming an advocate for victims' rights. Denise Bulger has campaigned tirelessly for changes in the law, particularly regarding the sentencing and rehabilitation of juvenile offenders. The pain of losing James has never fully healed, and the Bulger family continues to honor his memory through their advocacy work. After serving 8 years in custody, both Jon Venables and Robert Thompson were released in 2001 under strict conditions, including new identities to protect them from public retribution. Their release was highly controversial, with many arguing that they had not served enough time for their crime. The decision to grant them new identities was met with outrage by the public, who felt that they had not been adequately punished for the murder of James Bulger. The boys were released into society with the hope that they had been rehabilitated, but the story was far from over, particularly for Jon Venables. In 2010, Jon Venables was arrested again, this time for possession of child pornography. His reoffending shocked the nation and reignited the debate over whether he had been truly rehabilitated. Venables was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but this was not the end of his legal troubles. In 2017, he was arrested again for similar offenses, leading to further public outcry and a renewed focus on the efficacy of the juvenile justice system. Venables' recidivism has raised serious questions about the ability of the justice system to rehabilitate young offenders and the risks associated with releasing them back into society. The case continues to serve as a grim reminder of the challenges in balancing justice, rehabilitation, the case of Jon Venables, and public safety. Robert Thompson and James Bulger has had a lasting impact on society. It has influenced changes in laws related to juvenile offenders, the treatment of children in the legal system, and the media's portrayal of youth crime. The case has also sparked ongoing discussions about the nature of evil, the capacity for rehabilitation, and the responsibilities of society in preventing such tragedies. While the murder of James Bulger remains one of the darkest chapters in British history, it has also led to important conversations and changes in how we approach juvenile justice. The legacy of this case continues to be felt, reminding us of the complexities and challenges involved in dealing with child offenders. The murder of James Bulger is a tragedy that defies easy explanation. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about childhood, morality, and justice. How could 2 children commit such a horrific act? What role did their environment and upbringing play? And how do we as a society respond to such an unimaginable crime? The legacy of this case is a complex one, marked by grief, anger, and a deep sense of loss. But it also serves as a powerful reminder of the need for compassion, understanding, and vigilance in protecting the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you for joining us in this in-depth exploration of the chilling case of Jon Venables and Robert Thompson. The murder of James Bulger is a story that continues to resonate, reminding us of the profound impact such tragedies can have on individuals, families, and society as a whole. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more content exploring true crime cases and their lasting legacies.